it really is the big two now, isn't it? Because Dortmund beat Leipzig, who you have crowned as the number one contender, not called Bayern, before the start of the second half of the season. They beat them at home on Friday 2-1, and Bayern won also 2-1 at Stuttgart, which means that both teams are equal on points, Bayern with the better goal difference. Christoph, let's start with Dortmund on Friday night. Their 10th win in a row, the 8th in the league, and another game and another result where it could have been different. They weren't wholly convincing, but yet again, they held on and they found a way of winning. Would that be a fair summation?
Yeah, and that reminds me of the famous saying of Hermann Gerland, who likes to say when there is talk about this concept that Bayern is always lucky, immer Glück ist Können. And I think how can we translate it? Always lucky is quality, or
it's a skill to be always lucky.
Oh, it's a skill. It's a skill to be always lucky, and in a way, it looks like a skill that Borussia Dortmund has developed in this 10 games. That, as we remember, started very shakily against Augsburg, for example, this year, but now they have developed it into a quality, and yes, I mean, under other circumstances, probably last season, they would have probably only got 1 point, or maybe would have lost. And but so there was this 2-1 win, where they played very convincingly in the first half with, again, a brilliant Julian Brandt. In the first half, he looked like probably the best player in the Bundesliga right now, but this then he got lost a bit in the second half. But yes, it was a very good performance by Borussia Dortmund. But as you have been at the Dortmund camp before the restart of the Bundesliga, what I find interesting, and I think most Borussia Dortmund supporters find interesting, is this new. I don't like this talk about hierarchy, but these new roles that seasoned players like Mats Hummels, who spends a lot of time on the bench, and Marco Reus, who sometimes spends time on the bench, have. What can we make of it? Is this also a part of the explanation of what Borussia is now?
I think it's difficult to really ascertain, Christoph, what cause and effect is here. Is it because Dortmund are winning, that all the veterans are committed and supporting the team, even though personally they might have some difficult moments, as you said? Or is it because their support that the team are happier and are winning? I guess it's true. Both these things, I think, can be true at the same time. It looked to me when I was there that it might be a difficult second half of the season because of all these big personalities that might not be playing that much, and not just big personalities, but also normal-sized personalities and players like Moda Hood, who suddenly find themselves out of the team, and so many players that have to be kept happy. I thought it would be difficult for Edin Terzic, but I think if there's one thing he really understands is how to deal with people, how to deal with players, and he's been able to get them all online and on side. And I'm sure that is a factor. I also found it interesting that they managed to yet again win a game where in the second half they had almost no possession. They didn't want possession. They were very deep. I think Julian Brandt was almost a wing back in the second half. And in the past, when they tried this kind of approach under Lucien Favre, when there wasn't really much pressing and they were just waiting for teams to lose the ball and then they would counterattack, it almost descended. It often descended into a sense of passivity and not really being quite on it. But now they seem to be able to play without the ball, but still stay switched on and still have that energy and that aggression that you need if you want to be without the ball for such long times. And that seems to be the key for me. I still feel that as a team, I'd like to see a bit more stability, a bit more balance. But they have found a formula that evidently works. Just how good they really are, I'm still a little bit doubtful. But only because I guess we haven't really seen teams succeed who don't make much attempt to win the ball back. It's kind of a novel concept, I think, for a top team to play like that, or at least it's unusual. And they don't always do it, we should say, but in long stretches of these games, they've played without the ball, but they've played well without the ball.
But my impression on Friday was that it was probably not so much of a concept, but probably the because Leipzig was so aggressive in the second half, and I think Borussia would have liked the ball more. It was not this kind of Atletico Madrid concept like, hey, take the ball, do whatever you like. You don't get around us. So that was not my impression. I think there was they were losing the balls very quickly, and I think they were not always happy with it. But you're right. I mean, they had the stability, the nerve, and also the luck to bring it over and win it. And but let's before we talk about their prospects in London when they play Chelsea on Tuesday. Sebastian Aller, what's his role right now? He played like 70 minutes or so, and maybe a bit less. And he looks, yeah, how does he look like? Still not fully integrated in what's going on. Maybe waiting for his form to come, or is everybody happy with him as it is right now?
I think it's impossible to distinguish the happiness that they feel about him being on the pitch and a kind of more clinical, objective assessment of his performances. I think the two things are so linked up and mixed up that you cannot separate them easily. And I think just his presence still has this very uplifting effect on the team. And he is by far the best center forward that they have. They don't really historically have had many center forwards, with the exception of Lewandowski and Erling Haaland. And there's always been periods when they had to improvise or make Aubameyang a center forward or play with Moukoko as a center forward when Sebastian Haller was out. And I think they just, a little bit like Bayern, I think they benefit just from somebody being there. And it doesn't really matter so much if that person is not fully fit and is only lasting for 70 minutes. I think just the presence, the ability to be an outlet, it helps Dortmund to bypass the pressure, to go long, to just have more control in those spaces. I think that is invaluable for this team. And I think his personality and his attitude has a very positive effect on everyone else. I think that's why Edin Terzic keeps on playing him, and I think that's why everyone's waiting for the form to really kick in. But I think we've seen enough of him in the second half of the season since he's come back to understand the importance and the benefit of playing him. Now we just need to perhaps see a few more goals as well. But let's talk about Chelsea. You mentioned it. That was another game, by the way, where Dortmund in the second half played without the ball quite a lot, even though they were at home. Again, parallels to the game against Leipzig. You wouldn't expect a home team to be that deep and that passive. So maybe, yes, the other side were pushing them back, but it must have been at least partially, if not by design, then at least within the realms of Terzic's plan to play like that. I don't think they can play like that from the beginning at Chelsea. I think they need to try and actually unsettle this Chelsea team. This is not a happy Chelsea team. This is not a Chelsea team that is in full form, thriving with the total backing of the crowd. There are tensions, there are rifts, and I think you exploit them best by asking really difficult questions and really going for it and trying to score that second goal, which I think they'll need, because I think to go through on a 1-0 without the away goal rule is going to be tricky.
How unhappy is this Chelsea team right now? What's your impression? I mean, they spend so much money in winter. I mean, they spend more money than Bundesliga and La Liga and League One and Ligue 1 and Serie A combined, and are having a lot of problems, or is that a perspective that is probably a bit false? That they are indeed stronger than they look and only waiting for the moment to explode, or what's going on with this new built Chelsea team?
Well, they definitely are having problems. This was only the third win in 16 games for Graham Potter. I think he's trying to do something that's impossible, which is to build a new team while having a squad of 30 players who all have a claim of playing and all need to be kept happy somehow. And he's a great guy by all accounts, and will not just ruthlessly put half of the team with the reserves or try to be very strong. But that leads to an impossible situation of keeping them all happy. And I think that obviously they're happier now that they won against Leeds at the weekend. But this is a team that's still so far away from being a team that Dortmund have a great chance. What they do have, of course, are great individuals. And at any given moment, somebody like Joao Felix or Kai Havertz or Raheem Sterling or Mikhail Mudryk can do something special. And even though Chelsea as a team don't really fully function yet, it can be enough for them to score a goal. They were a little bit unlucky in recent weeks with the way that they couldn't convert their chances, and perhaps they were better than the results suggested, but not much better. So I think for Dortmund, it really is a historic chance to seize the moment, and to, especially the doubts that exist between the fans and the coach, because a lot of them blame Graham Potter for it, I think unfairly. If they can just bring that out by frustrating Chelsea and by perhaps scoring that goal that will really put Chelsea under huge pressure, that would make a big difference. But I'm still optimistic. I think still Chelsea have sort of a 40% chance of going through, and I would make Dortmund favorites.
A side aspect to the story is the experience in English football that Edin Terzic has. So he is prepared to what can happen at Stamford Bridge. He worked at that time as an assistant coach with Slaven Bilic at West Ham United some years back. And so I don't know, but maybe it's helpful for him or helpful to prepare his team, what they can expect there. But I think it's only a side effect.